Today I'm going to be showing you how to crochet the corner to corner open block stitch. This is a fantastic stitch for blankets. It's really nice and lightweight and airy. In this video I'm going to show you how to crochet the corner to corner open block stitch itself, and then how to prepare your piece so you can go on to add any border that you so wish. To begin, pop a slip knot onto your hook. Now every row for the corner to corner open block stitch starts with a solid block. So to form a solid block, you want to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're going to skip the first 3 chains. The loop on your hook does not count as anything. You only want to count these fully formed chains hanging down below. So 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip those and we're going to work into these last 3. So the 4th, 5th and 6th chains. Into those last 3 chains, we're going to work 1 double crochet in each. So skip 3 chains and work 1 double crochet into the remaining 3. So that's 1, then into the next chain, a double crochet, and into that last chain, work a double crochet. So we have just formed a solid block. We will start and end every row with a solid block. For row 2, again, we're going to start with a solid block. So chain 6, just straight from where you are, chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And just as before, we're going to skip the first 3 chains, and into the 4th, 5th and 6th chains, we're going to work 1 double crochet in each. So skip the first 3 and work a double crochet into the last 3 chains. 1, 2 and 3. So we formed our first solid block. Now we need to join to this block that we made in the row before. And to do that, we're just going to flip it up. Not turn, flip. So just flip this block up. And then into the chain 3 space, so this very top space here on the block that we flipped. If I put it back down, you'll see you have double crochet, double crochet, double crochet, and then your skipped chains. So flip it up, and that space of the chains is where we're going to be working. So into this gap here at the top of that block from the row below, we're going to work a slip stitch. So just pop your hook into the space, catch the yarn at the back, bring it through the space and through the loop on your hook to connect them. Now to finish this row, we need to form a solid block. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and then into this same space work 3 double crochets. 1, 2 and 3. Every solid block is formed with 3 chains and 3 double crochets. So for your very first block of the row, your 3 chains are formed when we skip them, and when we're working solid blocks, we chain up 3 and work 3 double crochets into the same space. For row 3 is where we start forming the open spaces. Now every single row starts with a solid block. It also ends with a solid block. So we always want to have a solid block at the start and finish of each row. So for row 3, the open block row, we're going to do the same thing that we're going to do for every single row moving forwards. Chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're going to form a solid block. So skip the first 3 chains and work 1 double crochet into each of those remaining 3 chains. So the 4th, 5th and 6th chain from your hook, each get a double crochet. Then flip up. So we're just flipping up each time. We're not turning our work. We just flip up. So once we've flipped up into the chain 3 space of the block directly next to you, we work a slip stitch to join it. So we have started with a solid block for row 3. Now we're going to form the open block, and the open block is nice and simple. You just chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then find the next block up. So we're moving up to this next block, and we're going to join with a slip stitch into that chain 3 space right at the top of the block. Just join with a slip stitch. So we now have our open space formed. Now to end the row, we need a solid block. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and work 3 double crochets into that same chain space. 1, 2, and 3. Now after every open block row, so the repeat of row 3, we need a solid block row. So we're going to be alternating between 2 different types of row. Open row followed by a solid row. So for row 4 is a solid row. Now regardless of what row you're on, we start and end with a solid block. So chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Skip those first 3 chains, and into the remaining 3 chains, work 1 double crochet in each to form a solid block. Then flip your work up. So just flip it up and join with a slip stitch into the chain 3 space of the block from the row below. Be right next to you. So row 4, solid row. So we're going to form solid blocks all the way along. So chain 3 and work 3 double crochets into that same chain space where you slip stitch to join. Then you'll have your chain 6 open block right next to you. And to join, we're just going to slip stitch into this space. So just slip stitch straight into that chain 6 space. And now we need to fill in this next solid block. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work into this chain 6 open space with 3 double crochets to complete our solid block. So 1, 2, and 3. Then slip stitch into the chain 3 space of the block next to you. And then to end, we need 1 more solid block as we are increasing. So we still want our project to grow by an extra block each row. So we're going this way. So don't forget to do this very last block. So we're going to chain 3 and into the top of this row that's forming here to the chain 3 space, work 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to keep repeating row 3 and row 4. So open row followed by a solid row. We're going to keep doing this until your project is the width that you want it to be. Now you want to end on a row 3, your open row. So once you've got to the right width, you need to be ending on an open block row before the decrease. So those of you that are a dab hand at the corner to corner technique, you go ahead and repeat rows 3 and 4, end on a row 3 when your project is the width that you want it to be, and meet me back here for the decrease. For those of you that would like a little bit of extra reminder, I'm going to do a recap of row 3 and 4 for you now. So to repeat row 3, again, chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We start and end every row with a solid block. So skip the first 3 chains and work 1 double crochet into the remaining 3 chains. So each chain gets a double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Flip your work up and join with a slip stitch to the row below. Now we're on an open block row. So chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then slip stitch to the next block. So we're forming that open space. Now row 3 goes solid, open, solid. So then after your chain 6 open block, we need a solid block. So create a solid block by chaining 3 and working 3 double crochets into that same chain space. Then slip stitch to join. So solid, open, solid. Next is an open. So chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And join with a slip stitch. Solid, open, solid, open. And we end with a solid. So chain 3 and work 3 double crochets into that chain space. After an open row, we follow with a solid row. This is how we're going to work until we have the width we want. Remembering when you get to the width you want to be ending on an open row before we start decreasing. So every row, regardless of whether it's solid or open, starts and ends with a solid block. So chain 6, and then skip the first 3 chains and work 1 double crochet into the remaining 3. 1, 2, and 3. Flip your work up and slip stitch to join. Now, as this is a repeat of row 4, it's solid blocks all the way along. And remembering your solid block is 3 chains and 3 double crochets into the same chain space. Then once we've formed our solid block, you slip stitch to join, and then you form a new solid block. Chain 3 and 3 double crochet. Slip stitch to join and form a new solid block. Slip stitch to join, new solid block. Slip stitch to join and work 1 more solid block. If you are ever in doubt as to which row you are currently on, we've just completed row number 6. And the reason I know that is these blocks along the side. I have 6 of them. And the blocks going up the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you're ever stuck as to which row you are on, count your side blocks and that will tell you which row you're on. So we're going to keep repeating open row followed by a solid row. Keep going until the project is the width you want it to be and end on an open row. Do not end on a solid row. We're going to end on an open row. Really quick recap for you, just one more time of these two rows. We've just done a solid row, so now we need to do an open row. Chain 6. And because every row starts with a solid block, we're going to skip the first 3 chains and work 1 double crochet into those remaining 3 chains. Flip your work up and slip stitch to join. So we started with a solid block. Now we're on the open row, so we're going to do open block, solid block, open block, solid block. So the open block is 6 chains. And slip stitch to join. So open followed by a solid block. Solid block is 3 chains and 3 double crochets. Slip stitch to join and then create an open block, so 6 chains. Open block followed by a solid block, so chain 3 and 3 double crochet. Then chain 6 for your next open block. And end with a solid block. This is the row you want to end on once your project is the width you want it to be. If your project isn't the width you want it to be yet, we follow with a solid row, which is a repeat of row 4. So we always start with chain 6 and forming a solid block at the very start of every single row. Flip your work up and slip stitch to join. We're on a solid row, so every block we make will be solid. So keep repeating an open row followed by a solid row and end on an open row once your project is the width that you want it to be. Once your project is the width that you want it to be and we have ended on an open row, you're ready to begin the decreasing. For my blanket, I made mine rectangular, so I'm going to show you in this video how we make a rectangle. For these decrease rows, it's handy to have a stitch marker just so you can easily identify which side is the side that you're decreasing on. This will make more sense in just a moment. So when forming a rectangle, what we want to do is now we have the width, we want to maintain the width whilst growing the length. So we need to keep one side short and flat whilst the other side continues to grow. The short flat side is going to be your decrease side, and that's the side you're going to want to mark with a stitch marker. So the very first decrease row is chain 1, and then we are going to turn our work. So we're not flipping upside down anymore, we are simply turning like the page of a book. Then under these 3 stitches, your 3 double crochets, the tops of them, we're going to work a slip stitch under each one. So 1, I'm just creeping along, 2 with little slip stitches so I don't add any height, and 3, because this is going to be my short flat side. Then I'm going to slip stitch into the chain space. So I've worked 4 slip stitches. Now this would be the side to pop your stitch marker in. You can pop it in wherever, under one of those slip stitches you made or the very end of it. It really doesn't matter. This is just a visual guide for you so that you know this is the decrease side. So every row begins with a solid block, and the decreasing sections no different. So we're going to form our first solid block, so chain 3 and work 3 double crochet into that chain space. Then slip stitch into your open block. Now because we are following an open block, every single one of these blocks is going to be solid, as we always alternate between open and solid rows. So all we've done here is we have just crept up, not added any more length, and we're just going straight in to a normal solid row. So we're going to chain 3, work 3 double crochets into the chain space below to form our solid blocks. Slip stitch to join and form your next solid block. Form solid blocks all the way up the row and meet me when you're ready to finish this first decrease row. So I've worked my way across the project and I'm over to the other side. I've just formed my last solid block into the space of my last open block below. And because we're forming a rectangle, this is where this stitch marker is super handy. This is the decrease side. And to form a rectangle, we want to keep going in this direction, not adding any length on one side, but continuing to grow it on the other. So we have a decrease side and then we have an increase side. If you were forming a square, this would be the point at which you stop. because for a square, you want to keep both sides the same length. So if you were doing a square, you would stop at this end joined block and then do exactly what we did on this decrease row, chain 1, slip stitch across, and then form your blocks, stop, turn, slip stitch, like that. So you'd be filling in this section. However, for a rectangle, we want to keep going. So to finish your first decrease row of the solid blocks, we're going to form a new block here. So we're going to keep working just as you did in all these other rows and work one more solid block into this outside edge to continue growing the length. So when you look at your project and you count these side blocks along your decrease side, for me, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on this small little sample. 9 is the width. That's what I want to maintain. But because I'm making a rectangle, I'm growing it. I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm continuing to grow the length. So this side remains at 9, whilst this side continues growing. For the second row, we have just done a solid block, so now we need an open block. So we're going to chain 6 and start with a solid block, just as you have for every other row. Flip your work up and join with your slip stitch. Now we're going to create our open rows with our chain 6 followed by a solid block. Chain 6, solid block. Just as you did on these increase rows, you're now going to be working back across your project, making your open rows. So chain 6, that's your open block, followed by a solid block. Work this all the way across until we get to the other side. So I've just worked my way along the side. I've just done a chain 6 open block here and I have one space left to fill in. Now we end every row with a solid block. So this is my solid block and I'm slip stitching to join. And this little stitch marker and the fact it's an open row tells me I am on the decrease side. So I do not want to go on and build another block. I'm done. This is the decrease side. Over here, this is the increase side. So again, for the next set of rows, we're going to do the same thing that we did in the last one. We're going to chain 1. We're going to turn our work like the page of a book, and then you're going to slip stitch under the top of these 3 double crochets. So just work a slip stitch, 1, 2, 3, then slip stitch into the chain space. So we're now ready to do our next row. So we're going to be repeating those last 2 rows over and over as your project grows. So we start every row, we've slip stitched into the chain space on this decrease side with a solid block. Regardless of which row it is, always start with a solid block. And then we're going to form solid blocks all the way up as we work over to the increase side. Once you've filled in your last open block, you want to end by forming a new block. This is the length side. So don't forget to add that extra solid block on the top every time we come back. So you can see we're maintaining the width. The width is the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blocks. If we count these open rows, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you're maintaining the width with your decrease side, but the length is growing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So keep repeating these 2 rows, your open row followed by your solid row. Your solid row on the way back up will always end with that extra block on the increase side. For the open row, working our way back over to this decrease side, we start by forming a new block. So we're going to chain 6, form your new solid block, because we're still on the increase side, so we're still forming new blocks along this side. Flip your project up, and then form your open row with your chain 6 spaces. So you have your chain 6 open block followed by a solid block. So we've got a chain 6 followed by a solid block all the way back over to the decrease side. So work this all the way back over to the decrease side. We're going to continue these 2 rows until your project is the length that you want it to be. Once it is the length you want it to be, again, we're going to end on this open row before we begin the next set of decreases to bring your rectangle back down. So keep alternating between your solid row up to the increase side and then your open row with your chain 6s back to the decrease side. Once it is the length that you want it to be, and we will have ended again on an open row, now you're ready to start filling this in to get it to meet back at a point. So from this point on, once you have the length that you want, we're going to treat both sides as a decreased side because we do not want to add length on either side. So you've got the right length of your project that you want, and you have ended on this open row. Now we can begin decreasing on both sides. So as we're on a decreased side, and we're going to be on decreased sides for both moving forwards, we chain one, turn like the page of a book, and slip stitch under the tops of those 3 double crochets, trying to keep your yarn on your hook. Try that one again. There we go. 1, 2, 3 slip stitches, and slip stitch into the chain 3 space. You can go ahead and remove your stitch marker now if you want to, because from this point on, both sides will be decreased sides. So we're going to start the same way as we have been. We're going to chain 3 and create a solid block into that chain 3 space. Slip stitch into the chain 6. And then we're going to form solid blocks all the way back up to the top. Now stop when you have filled in that very last open block. We do not want to continue adding any length. We're going to stop at this point. So I'm working my final solid block into the open block from the row below. Slip stitch to join, and then stop. We do not want to continue adding any more blocks. Both sides are now decreased sides. So for the next row, we're going to chain 1, turn our work. We're treating both sides as decreased sides. So we're going to slip stitch under the 3 double crochets. I'm just slip stitching into the top of them. 1, 2, 3, and into the chain 3 space. Every row starts and ends with a solid block. So we're going to fill in this solid block here by chaining 3 and working 3 double crochets, just as you did on the other side. Now we're doing it on both. So now this side also becomes a short side like the other one. We're now on an open row. So we started with a solid block. Now we form our open blocks with chaining 6. And we always follow an open block with a solid block. And we're going to work this across. For this end decreasing section, when we're meeting both sides back together, it gets much, much faster. It's very satisfying doing these rows. Once you reach the other side, just be mindful not to accidentally add another block, because we now have a nice flat short row here. And we do the same thing again. We're going to chain 1, turn our work like a book, slip stitch into the top of those 3 double crochets that you just made. So I'm returning back along those stitches into the chain 3 space, and again start with a chain 3 and forming of a solid block. And then slip stitch into your open block. And this row is then a solid row. So we're going to be always stopping now with the final slip stitch to join, because we don't want to add an errant extra box up here. We want to keep them now flat coming in together. So solid row. So you can see we are now filling in this little section. So keep alternating between your open row and your solid row, with each side being a decrease. As you work your way down, eventually you will reach the point where you have just one solid block, one open block, one solid block on your decrease. So as you're working your way back, that's absolutely fine. Don't panic. The next row you work would be the solid row as normal. So you start with your first solid block, join it to the last open block that we're going to be making, and create a solid block into that open block. So that will be your very last open block formed. We still have one little space to fill in here. We want to be working our way down to just one block. So for this very, very last row, we're going to slip stitch into the top of the 3 double crochets you just made and into the chain 3 space. And then we form just one solid block. So you can see we have 2 blocks here. We're working our way back down to 1. So chain 3 and work your 3 double crochet into that chain space. and then slip stitch to join. You will have come all the way back in. So at this point, we've now finished the main body of your project. If you wanted to end it right here, you would chain 1, cut your yarn, leaving a nice long length, and then you've got your 2 tails to weave in and you're done. However, if you are making a blanket, it's quite nice to sort of clean up these raggedy edges and have a nice foundation, which you can then go ahead and put a border onto, like this. So we just have one more little foundation row to go, just to neaten this up. And we're going to use the same yarn that you have worked your whole project in. So we're not going to cut our yarn for working this little foundation border row around the project. We're just going to continue from this point. So we're going to chain 1, and into this space in between your blocks, we're going to work a single crochet. So if you pull your little blocks apart, you've got solid blocks all the way around. There's a little gap in between them. Into this space, work a single crochet. So just reach down and work a single crochet. Now, if you would like to mark the top of that single crochet with a stitch marker so you don't lose it on the way back round, you're absolutely free to do so. Then we're going to chain 2. 1, 2, and find the next space in between your blocks. So if you just pull them apart, there's a really obvious spot here, and work a single crochet into that space. Chain 2. Find the next gap in between your solid blocks and work a single crochet. Chain 2. Find the next space and work a single crochet. So we're creating chain edges along the side, which gives it a nice flat edge and little spaces where you can work whatever border you fancy into. So we're going to repeat this, keep going down the side. We're going to chain 2, find the space in between the next set of blocks and work a single crochet just into that gap. Do this all the way along the side of your project. Once you get all the way along the side and you've got to your sort of end block on the corner, we're going to chain 2. We're going to form a corner into this corner. Now, this is a little bit of a fudge it and see mentality for these corners because there isn't really a clear set space on each corner where to work into. For this very first one here, I like to personally work into the top of this stitch, this double crochet here. But you can work into just the gap if that's easier for you. There's no right or wrong. You work your corners for coming around wherever you want, wherever they work for you. Your corners will be formed with a single crochet, chain 2, and a single crochet back into that exact same space. So you are forming a little corner chain space here to come around the corner. So we've got chain 2 spaces all the way along the sides here for working your border stitches. And we have a little chain 2 space in the corner for the same purpose. So we're going to work this all the way around your project. Along the sides, you're going to chain 2 and work a single crochet in between your blocks. So your solid blocks. Chain 2, find the next space in between the solid blocks and work a single crochet. Work this along each side. When you get to the last block and the corner of your project, chain 2, if you hadn't already, and we form the corner into wherever you are most comfortable forming the corner. It can be into the stitch or it can be into the space around in between these two stitches, totally up to you. Over here I worked into the top of the stitch. Here I'll probably, because this is my slip stitch and it's a little bit gappy, I'll work in between the stitches themselves. So in here, just work a single crochet, chain 2, and a single crochet back into the same space to form a corner. And then continue working around with your chain 2 and your single crochet in between the blocks. As I say, you work your corners wherever they fit for you, really. This is how it looks if you work into the top of the stitch, and this is how it looks if you work around and in between a couple of the stitches. It's a very, very minimal difference, and once you have worked a border into all these chain 2 spaces around, you will not notice. So work this all the way around. Once you've worked your final 2 chains here and you're right back to that very first single crochet that you made, to end, we're simply going to slip stitch into the top of that single crochet. Now at this point, what you go on to do is entirely personal preference. On my blanket, I went on to form my border using an entirely different yarn. I find that that really highlights the corner to corner nature of the project when you have a separate color border. So for me personally, this was the point at which I cut my yarn and ended. So to do that, we're going to chain 1, cut your yarn, leaving a nice long length for weaving in afterwards, pull it up, out and tight, and then you have your 2 ends to weave in, and your corner to corner open block stitch project is complete, as is this little foundation row for working your border stitches. Now my personal border was very, very simple. Into the chain 2 spaces that I formed on that foundation row, I worked 2 single crochet stitches. When I got to the corner, I worked 1 single crochet, chain 2, and 1 single crochet. Nice and simple. Then I worked 3 rows of half double crochet stitches. I worked another row of single crochet stitches, and then I finished with a round of crab stitch. So I kept it super simple. You can, of course, add far more elaborate borders if you so wish. But that's it. That's it for this video. Good job for sticking around for so long. I really hope you enjoyed this corner to corner open block stitch. Please do let me know what you think of this stitch down in the comments below. And until next time, happy crocheting. Bye.